Hi, this is Shamillah. I'm sitting here chatting with Jay today, just getting to know each other and learning about life, love, and activism. Welcome, Jay, to my channel and to the conversation.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
For our viewers, I'd like you to do a short intro about you.
Sure.
Who are you and why are you sitting here with me?
Hey guys, I'm Jay, aka Sunray Jay. I'm a lot of things, but in professional terms, I'm the CEO of my company Galactic Baddies, where we offer audiovisual specialist services and other media services that help us to make sure that everybody looks great and that we're creating content that really makes a change in the world. So that's a little bit about what I'm about. Yeah.
I'm not satisfied with that answer.
You are more?
No, I guess like who is Jay?
Yeah. I'm a creative. I'm a writer, sound engineer. I specialize in various fields in the media, but I'm also just an artist at heart. I'm somebody that is in love with creativity and spirituality. And that's basically how I found myself here where I am, through like being in tune with these creative endeavors that you can do on earth, I guess. And yeah, I've always been in a creative and within the creative realms, whether that was, art at school or like making little films with my cousins. We were always just engaging our creativity. And that's what led me to continue that. When I was young, I said, I'm going to be a singer and an actress. So I guess I'm a hair off, but sound engineer and scriptwriter still kind of eats.
You're like me. We're a bit of everything. But maybe I think coming to this conversation, what is it that, like we were talking earlier, informally, off camera, and we discovered there are some parallels and intersections. I was sharing that I grew up in Cape Town on the Cape Flats. So I'm a baddie, according to you.
Oh, yes.
The Galactic Baddie. And yeah, in many ways that has shaped who I am in the world. I always say that's where I got my street smarts from. That's where I think I really got to know a sense of who I am in the world, whilst being very grounded in a sense of community as well. What is your intersection to that? Because there was a parallel that you shared. Where there was a resonance between us.
Yeah, and mine, I think, would be that, in the same way, I grew up I was born in Cape Town. I grew up in the Eastern Cape in East London. And I grew up very much like aware that I was different, but very much not sure what that language was, I guess, until I was able to grow up and learn more. But coming from a small town or a small community of people, there's so much that I had to unlearn about myself. So once I realized that I'm queer, that was a big awakening for me because it really helped me to fully embody what's going on with me? Why do people treat me a certain way? Or why do they see me as so different when I'm just trying to fit in? There was like no chance. I could never fit in, really. I'm so bad at fitting in.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's an interesting piece, right? Like realizing all those efforts at fitting in, like
they're failing.
Yeah, it was just a waste of energy and time. But I think that was also a way of getting to know ourselves.
Yes,
right?
And I love that parallel between us. I think we both knew from a very early point that we're just very different. We're not like blending in the same way everyone around us is. And I love that parallel. I think I knew also that there's something different about me and people can see that, but it was my journey to see that for myself as a superpower. So I love that it works for us as a superpower.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I think I don't know that I consciously ever wanted to be different.
Exactly.
I guess there was just some point where I said, I just don't want to be mediocre. I just had a thing about mediocrity.
Bars.
I just didn't want to be like everybody else. I just wanted to be me, I think, and it took me a while to appreciate that. And I think my journey, going from the community I grew up in, going to university. And then, I think the different adventures I went on that brought me here, was an interesting path. I don't think, there was a point when one of my younger cousins, I think about 10 years ago, asked me, like, so what did you study to do what you do? I always found that question such a trick, because it's like almost like I sat down one day and I mapped it out, and that's where I'm gonna be. And I
Literally.
guess the only thing that guided me on my journey was a sense of curiosity,
Mm.
a sense of being guided by, I think there was an inner light that was like, there's more, right? And then kind of pursuing that, whether it was, and I think the other thing that I think was significant about my journey was this constant need to learn and to make the most of where I was. I think, like I was, like for the first 10 years of working, I felt like I was a sponge. I
Wow.
literally,
Taking in.
I would do my work, what I needed to do, what I was paid to do. And then I would go to the people around me and I'm like, I want to learn what you're doing too.
I love that.
And that's kind of how like my curiosity would be sparked, and I would want to learn more about that, right?
I was going to ask, like, how did you allow that curiosity to guide you, even when maybe it was like outside of your field, or not what you studied, or not what you're told you're supposed to do after you get that degree, How did you honor your curiosity?
Like it's that piece that I was saying to you. When I was studying, I was working full time and studying full time, because that was the only way I could do it. And I was lucky that I was working at the university. And I think working at the university, there's so many things going on, right? Like there are so many
Layers to the whole
layers and
thing.
different things. So I would, some of my colleagues would do research, and I'm like, do you need a research assistant? Right? And that's how I would learn. And then I was like, I can't participate equally in the conversation, so let me do more courses on that. So that's how I learned
Wow.
the things that I learned.
Like
And
armoring yourself with these layers
and
of
then there was,
knowing.
like, at that time when I was on campus, there was a lot of sexual violence against female students. And then I was like, okay, I need to join that. And that's kind of like, learning and becoming active on campus, and, joining those things. And then even in my work, joining different initiatives. I think that's kind of opened up doors. And then I would go through those doors and learn more, expand more. That was in many ways my journey. Was while I was working, I would always seek out different things. When there was a time when I worked at Parliament, which not many people know.
Wow.
I know. I always say I went to Parliament kicking and screaming, because I was like, I hate bureaucracy. I really
Literally.
hate institutionalization. And I remember a friend of mine just said, just go and learn how the system works, because the work you want to do is about, tackling the system. You can't tackle the system if you don't understand the system. So I was working in the speaker's office, and I was working on this project. So the project I was working on, I would finish all my work on a Monday, all my work. And then I had like 4 days of like, okay, what will I do now?
I love
And
it.
I was like, next door to me, there was this big project, right? And I would go to the director and I'd say to him, like, there were like 30 people working on this project. I'd say to him, what are the things that nobody wants to do? Like none of your team likes to do. I will do that.
You're brilliant.
And so the things nobody liked to do, which is one of my superpowers now, was writing proposals and writing reports. People didn't like to write, right? So people would organize the workshops and they would do the different things, but they didn't like to do the writing and the conceptualization. So I said to him, okay, I'll give it a try. And so over 6 months, I started developing myself in this area. And so then a role became like, his deputy position became available. And he said to me, I need you to apply for this.
Wow.
And then I applied and I got it. But then my boss heard at the time, she heard about it and she's like, no, you are not taking this job. I will give you a better job. She was lying, actually.
Ugh.
Because she just didn't want to lose me.
Yeah.
And so she kept on.
Your value, she knew it.
So we went through this phase where every time I would want to leave, she gives me more money. and she gives me a better title until I figured out it was not real. Like the money was real, but the job wasn't.
The titles were.
The title was created because I kept on saying to her, I am bored.
Yeah.
I was so bored, like,
Of that rinse and repeat.
And so then when I eventually left Parliament and she agreed, was I got this international job. And I said to her, they're actually going to pay me less than what you're paying me right now. But I'm taking it on because it's going to stretch me. I'm going to learn something new. And that's what I want. Like, yeah. I'm too young to get stuck in a job where I just get paid a lot of money. And
I just have to do what you tell me.
Yeah. So that's kind of how I expanded and expanded and expanded. Was I kept on wanting to learn more. I kept on saying, there's more. And I think my biggest thing was I never wanted to be bored. And I realize now that's a big kind of thing in my life when I'm bored. And then
that's how you almost know that you're getting to a place where you're going to need to meet a new version of yourself that might require a different environment, a different setup, a different title, different whatever.
So for me, I think the one thing that I realized about myself is I'm good at achieving something. Like if I set my mind to something.
On a goal.
On the Enneagram, they call me the 3.
I love
it. So the 3 is the performer and the achiever. The 3 is like, you can tell me to go build a bridge now. I don't know anything about bridges, but I will build a bridge because I will learn and that will excite me.
Especially because it's something you didn't know before, which makes sense because it's in the learning of that new thing that you gain something new about yourself.
And so I think the more I learned, the more other doors opened for me and other doors and other doors. And I think until I got to a point where I'm like, okay, I don't want to work full time for anyone anymore. And I think my last job I left, this is going to tell you how old I am. In 2008, I left full-time employment because I was burnt out. I was very disillusioned with activism, with global feminist organizing, and I just needed a break. And so I went to go do the thing that was the opposite of that. I went to go study an MBA and a coaching diploma. What? And I just said, I want to just look at something that's completely different. And it was just to give myself space, a little bit of spaciousness. And I think that's how I started, like coaching opened up a whole new world for me. The MBA opened up. Well, I just enjoyed studying. It was like, how challenging can an MBA be? So I was just like, okay, let me just do it.
Also, I feel like you're just that person that's like, oh, MBA, I can do that. What is it? I can do that. And I love that because I think we often get told so much what we can't do that we need people that are going to say, I can do anything, even if it's hard, even if other people have a hard experience, I can have a different experience of that. And I wanted to ask you, where did this like tenacity come from where you follow your excitement, you follow your highest excitement? How have you been able to honor that through all these years, especially becoming an entrepreneur and going from having all these different institutions where they're telling you what to do? And yes, there's the promise of this paycheck, but how did you transition into fully being your own boss, your own person, having your own entrepreneurship? And how did you allow yourself to kind of like do that fearlessly, even without knowing what the outcome could be?
I think so there's this thing in my head. I said, even if I need to go and beg somebody to clean the roads, I can do that and I will survive, right? So I think the deep belief that nothing that happens, even if I lose everything, the comforts and everything, I will be fine. I don't mind going and sleeping on someone's floor. So I think because I had that belief that nothing would be so bad that I won't be okay.
Yes.
And so it allowed me to take risks.
You kind of tamed your fears because you kind of were able to look at the worst thing that could happen and be like, even if that would happen, I will make the most out of that situation.
And I think one of the things that I've said to myself over the years is when I'm unhappy. So, my parents cringed at this because in their world, having a job was the thing.
Paramount.
So if I wanted to do something that they didn't want me to do, I would just say my job requires me to do it because, that's how I moved out of the house. I said to my mother that well, for my job, I need to live there
Yeah.
and I can't live with you anymore. And I knew that she wouldn't know the truth and she wouldn't find out the truth. So that's how I got to take big leaps. I think the second thing for me was the first thing was that if I'm unhappy, it's because I choose to be there, right? And so I never believed that I needed to endure something to the extent that it kills my spirit, my sense of
Yes.
self,
Yes.
and my sense of worth. So I always have the feet. My feet means I can move, right? Like that piece where they said you're not a
You're not a
tree.
tree. You can
Yeah.
move.
So
Very
so
that.
so I totally. So I think there were two jobs that I just walked out of, and I think the person that was managing me, she was in shock, and she's like, "But you have nothing. Like you don't even have a job to go to." And I'm like, "Yeah, but I'm desperately unhappy, and for me, it's my responsibility to be happy." I think the second thing is like, so if I'm experiencing certain things and it's breaking down my sense of self, then I need to leave. The second thing is that I knew that I needed to be challenged and stimulated.
Mm.
And
You needed to grow.
and so one of the reasons I don't go into full-time employment is because I know that's also the quickest way for me to become bogged down with, like, I'm a good creator, a good starter, initiator. I'm not a good maintainer. Like, if you need somebody to maintain something, please don't get me, because I'm going to start getting bored and then I'm going to not show up in the same way. So I think learning these things about myself. So the kind of situation I have now is, I say I have the perfect situation, right? I have 30% of my time I spend on coaching. 30% of my time I do, I have one project that I work on. And then there's another thing that I co-create with a group of friends.
Mm.
And then the other 10% is whatever.
Whatever you feel
Like whatever feels great and interesting and whatever. So I think for me, it's about constantly seeking my joy. Like my coach used to say to me, Shamillah, you are good at many things. So the thing you need to focus on is what you're great at. And I think I added to that, what brings me joy
Yes.
is like, it's not what I'm great at only, but what
Yes.
brings me joy, what I'm curious about, and what stretches me.
Exactly.
I think those are the things that define the choices I make. Like how it is that I make choices about my life and myself is, also I ask myself the question, if I were to watch a movie of my life, would I say,
Yes. Yes.
would I say, oh, that person is living life to the fullest?
Exactly.
And I think those are some of the criteria that I use.